a big ask. But anyway, there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Pierre Poilievre and this finance minister's meeting. He's responding to Danielle Smith. Danielle Smith says, the carbon tax is hurting all Canadians and is the top affordability issue on the minds of Canadians from coast to coast. I've asked my finance minister, Nate Horner, to join other provinces in calling for an emergency discussion tomorrow at the finance minister's meeting regarding the need to axe the carbon tax immediately. So they're framing this as one way. I'm sure Ms. Freeland thinks it's something else. Pierre Poilievre says tomorrow, federal, provincial finance ministers will meet to discuss the carbon tax. Freeland must announce that she is taking the tax off all home heating. No more divide and conquer. Yeah, I hope that she does that. It's not likely to happen, but I hope that she does that. That would be good. That would be the easy way. Then Pierre Poilievre will crow and claim success, or that he was the one to, take the tax off, and, he'll keep the tax off, blah, 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 blah. They'll make political hay out of it if she concedes, and she should concede. There's a lot of pressure. It's not like there's 50-50. I think everything I've seen, all the premiers agree with the premiers I'm about to show you. Here's Danielle Smith again. She says, as a Canadian, do you feel it's fair to continue paying the carbon tax on home heating when some places are now exempt? Comment below. And here's a 2-minute video. We'll listen to it as long as it makes sense. There's a couple of different segments in here. I think we're going to listen to at least 2. Here we go.
If you're going to have a federal government asserting that they have to have this power so everybody is treated equally, and then they don't treat everyone equally, it seems to me that that's something we should go back to the court and ask them whether or not they want to reconsider whether this is an appropriate use of the federal powers. I would rather this have a political solution. I would rather the federal government accept that if this is a painful tax going into winter for Atlantic Canadians, it's a painful tax going into the winter for everyone, and just make sure that he does the right thing and takes the tax off for all types of home heating in every province. Mo acknowledged that what he was doing probably wasn't in keeping with the law. He acknowledged that. I watched his 3-minute video, and he said he wouldn't normally feel like he was pressed to do that because we do have a Supreme Court decision that does give the federal government the power to set a federal carbon price. And it's the federal government, I think, who's not living up to the spirit of what they said to do. And I wouldn't ask our private sector operators to be in a position where I'm asking them to be out of compliance with the law. I would just prefer for the federal government to do the right thing. The federal government has to create tax fairness. They have to put a reprieve on the carbon tax on all home heating in all provinces, on all sources of heating. Otherwise, you're going to see these kinds of actions taken by the provinces who can, and we're all Canadian. We're all suffering from the same acceleration in the costs, the same pressures during winter. And so I hope that the Prime Minister does the right thing. And if he was prepared to give an exemption on one type of home heating oil that benefited one region of the country, he should give it to everyone. With us in industry to reduce emissions in a different way and transition to different fuels, because it's not the choice of Alberta citizens. I mean, that's the only option they really have is home heating by natural gas. It's just getting increasingly punitive. So I would hope that the Prime Minister would do the right thing and acknowledge that, rather than allow for these pockets of inequality to crop up all over the country.
There you go. We listened to the whole thing because, worthwhile. She's right. She's right. One of the main tenets of the Supreme Court holding up the idea that the government could set a carbon tax was that it was a measure being applied equally across the whole country. It didn't matter where you lived, that the carbon tax was going to impact you, and blah, blah, blah. And now that's not true, and people are pushing back. And honestly, the carbon tax does nothing but make things more expensive for everybody. It doesn't actually attack any issues whatsoever. It gives the government a lot of money, I guess, but it doesn't actually change anything climate-wise. It may change behavior about your use of oil and gas, how much gas you put in your car, because you can't afford as much gas as you used to be able to afford. But it's not something that is actually changing the weather. It's not something that is moving the needle at all on this climate scam that they've got going, because it's a scam. The whole thing's a scam. Blaine Higgs, the Premier of New Brunswick, says, we've made clear that when finance ministers meet tomorrow, axing the carbon tax to bring desperately needed relief to Canadians must be the priority. Other premiers have said the same. We are counting on Minister Freeland to listen to premiers across the country and axe the tax. She's going to listen when you use the branded rhetoric of the opposition. She loves that. That's her favorite thing. If you wear a red dress, top notch. She'll definitely axe the tax. Hashtag. Scott Moe says the Saskatchewan legislature has unanimously voted to call on all MPs to support this motion extending the carbon tax exemption on heating oil to all forms of home heating. We will be watching to see which MPs vote for tax fairness for Canadian families. So this is the Conservatives, the federal Conservatives under Poilievre have a different fight about them at this point in time. And they are attacking with videos. Each minister's got their own way of attacking Justin Trudeau, but it is a very themed attack. They're all doing it in a coordinated way. Each one's attacking in a different vector, in a different way, with kind of a different end, but it's all kind of a storm of attacks. And that's very interesting. And now, because Poilievre is the leader of the opposition, he can bring in votes. And so the opposition are going to force a vote on this home heating tax thing and be able to name and shame specific MPs for voting against their constituents, voting against their constituents having more money in their pockets. There's a lot of political rhetoric that you can make out, the political hay you can make out of a vote like this. So it is a very, very interesting move, and it's a good one. They're actually fighting, right? And so there's a Canadian Press, I guess, headline. It says Conservatives to force vote on exempting all forms of home heating from federal carbon tax. Pressure is increasing on Justin Trudeau, who has said there will be no more carve-outs on the carbon tax. So they're going to use public shaming. They're going to use people being like, "Aren't you upset?" Saying, "Aren't you upset that you're being treated differently than these other people who have more or less green ways of heating their home than natural gas like you use, and they get exempt from the carbon tax? How does that make sense?" Right? And they're going to farm that correctly. People are upset, and they're going to say, "Yeah, we disagree. We're upset too. Let's all go be upset together and fix this problem that is created by these liberals." Doug Ford's getting in on this. He says, last week, a federal minister said the provinces should elect more Liberal members if they want breaks on their home heating bills. With nearly half of the Liberal caucus being from Ontario, it's time for these members to advocate for the families they're elected to represent. He says, "Dear Mr. Maloney and the Ontario Liberal Caucus, I'm writing to you as members of the Ontario Liberal Caucus to insist that you join us in advocating for fair treatment and lower costs for families and businesses in our province. Your government's decision to cut the carbon tax on home heating oil is a step in the right direction. However, at a time when costs are up everywhere, it's only fair that every Canadian be provided some relief right now, no matter where they live. Here at home, 97.5% of Ontarian households do not use oil and gas for their homes. These families also deserve a break. By removing the carbon tax from home heating oil last week, your government finally admitted that this tax is making life too expensive for people. Now you need to go further, do the right thing, and remove the federal tax from natural gas on home heating." Last week, Guy Hutchings, Minister of Rural Economic Development, said that your Atlantic Caucus colleagues pushed for the removal of the carbon tax from home heating oil, and that to receive similar carve-outs, provinces should elect more Liberal members. With nearly half of the entire Liberal caucus being from Ontario, it's time you do the same as your Atlantic colleagues and advocate for the families you are elected to represent. I urge you to scrap the carbon tax on natural gas for home heating in Ontario and across Canada. It's the only fair thing to do. So be fair, be reasonable, right? Look out for your constituents. And Jagmeet Singh, he's going after the CEOs. The funny thing is, Jagmeet Singh always says that Justin Trudeau's not standing up for them. Jagmeet Singh is the one who's propping up Justin Trudeau. Whatever Justin Trudeau does, Jagmeet Singh tacitly or actively supports. Here's Jagmeet Singh. He says, "While Canadians struggle with the cost of living, big oil and gas is making record profits. Justin Trudeau won't stand up to them. Pierre Poilievre works for them." Does he work for them? How does he work for them? "We need a windfall tax on these record profits to invest in workers who need help now." Can Jagmeet Singh just say anything he wants, or does he have to have some basis in reality? I would love to see the rationalization for Pierre Poilievre works for big oil. Here is Jagmeet Singh talking in the House of Commons. 30 seconds. It's annoying. I agree. Here we go.
The Prime Minister has made it very clear that only those who vote for Liberals will get relief on their home heating, which has divided Canada and undermined the fight against climate crisis. Canadians want to do the right thing, but they can't, for example, navigate the onerous government programs for a heat pump and end up giving up. So instead of dividing Canadians, will the Prime Minister tax the excess profits of oil and gas companies and use that revenue to help all Canadians? Yeah.
Excess profit, heat pump. Heat pump doesn't work. Excess profit, what are they, Jagmeet? Who decides what's excess? Those are a whole bunch of excess profits I see that your company is making there. Be a shame if the government took some of those excess profits. What? What kind of madness are we being forced to live through? Holly Doan says, let's talk about app scans. Speaking of wasting Canadian taxpayer dollars, Holly Doan says, contractor who was paid millions of dollars for the ArriveCan app was tape recorded boasting that he had a poll with senior Canadian border officials. Kristen Firth, GC Strategies of Woodlawn, Ontario, also quoted saying cost overruns would suck for Canadians. Yikes. Yikes. Here's Mr. Michael Barrett discussing this with him, the contractor. The whole back and forth is very interesting. It's long. It's a little long, so I'll stop it when it makes sense to stop. But the last time we watched the whole thing, so it is conceivable that we could watch the whole thing. Here's Michael Barrett talking about the ArriveCan app scam and how much this guy did, how much he was paid to not do any code on this app at all. This guy does not like this line of questioning. Here we go.
How many staff work at GC Strategies?
We have 2 employees, but we outsource our finance and legal.
App programming or design?
No, we do not.
So your role in terms of IT contracts for the federal government is that you're the middleman between the government and the people who do the work. Is that correct?
Well, we are responsible for bringing in individuals and building teams that the federal government would not have access to, as they do not have them on staff, and they also do not have recruitment capabilities.
Right. I mean, the recruitment capabilities of direct messaging people on LinkedIn, I'm sure a value could be ascribed to that. And actually, we're going to see what that value is. You worked on the $54 million ArriveCan app. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And that app, the work on that app is now under RCMP investigation. Is that correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
You're not aware of the RCMP investigating any of the work related to GC Strategies or anyone that you've done, any of you were contracted by or subcontracted to?
That's correct. My understanding was in the testimonies that I've heard and was clarified by some honorable members that right now RCMP is only investigating the Bottler accusations and not ArriveCan.
Okay, so did you work with Bottler?
I've worked with Bottler for 2 years as their representation, and we were in partnership.
Okay, and how much money have you made so far with contracts with the Government of Canada?
I'm sorry, I do not have those numbers in front of me. I wasn't prepared for that question. My apologies.
You weren't prepared to tell the committee when we're here to ask you about your contracts with the government, how much you've been paid by the government for your contracts?
Well, this is the ArriveCan application study. This isn't contracting with GC Strategies and the federal government study. I've already given off all the information I have for the application for ArriveCan, which is the base of the study. I've had 2 hours of testimony. I've given hundreds of pages of documentation.
Right.
And we're awaiting
you
another general's report.
You had to be summoned to appear here today, sir, and you don't even have the basic details about the work that you've done for the government. How much money was GC Strategies paid to not do any programming or app design for the ArriveCan app?
Well, first, I think I clarified in my opening statement. The reason why I was summoned was because 1 hour was not sufficient.
I heard your
today,
opening statement, sir.
hours.
My question is with respect to your billing for ArriveCan.
Mm-hmm. Can you repeat the question, please?
How much did you get paid for your work on ArriveCan?
I've already given up all this information. You have all of my invoices.
Sir, are you
to the
refusing to
government?
answer the question? It's a very straightforward question. As you said, this is a study about ArriveCan. It seems to me that it would be quite pertinent for you to be able to tell the committee how many millions of dollars you were paid with your 2-person company to do work on an app that you didn't do any programming for. How much money?
I am more than happy that once I get that number to give you the answer in writing. I do not have that number with me right now, the exact dollars.
It's the liberal tap dance, or also like bullet time in the Matrix, right? He's just dodging all those bullets. It's very, very interesting. He doesn't want to answer the question because do they add that much value? Do they add $1 million worth of value to the $54 million ArriveCan app that shouldn't have been even $1 million in the first place? Do they add $1 million worth of value? Do they add $5 million worth of value? He also says is it $9 million? And he said, no, it's not $9 million. And Barrett's like, what? You know it's not $9 million, but you don't know how much it is. So it's very interesting, the back and forth. Here's further. This is the whistleblowers happening now. Auditor General's office confirms an audit into the corruption at the Liberals' billion-dollar Green Fund. At least $40 million is under review so far after whistleblowers reveal gross mismanagement and suspicious payments. So this is another Michael Barrett trying to organize what we know. This is the SDTC scandal, and this is the board of governors that are meant to that were in place when the scandal broke, and the 300 pages of whistleblower documentation about this scandal. They're all still in the positions of power, and they're meant to rectify this by the end of 2023. And he's incredulously setting this up here. It's a little bit long, and we've already done lots of time on the videos today, so I'm just going to keep going. But again, this is an unbelievable turn of circumstances to have the people who set up such a massive failure, with people having to go to whistleblowers and people not believing them, and then people believing them and having like months-long investigations. And the people who have created the situation are still in place. And everybody knows there's a massive problem, but it doesn't look like there's anybody who's really interested in solving the problem, because they say, you know, these people that created the problem, they're going to be tasked with solving the problem. And in this, the guy here says, we're going to be watching them. I was like, what? Not going to work, man. Like, you're going to watch them for, you know, signs and indications they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Yeah, there's huge signs and indications that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing already. We don't need another couple of months of failed leadership. Oh my gosh. Here is moving on to, so it's just corruption all over the place, from SDTC to the ArriveCan app. And I believe these are different scandals. I don't believe they're all the same scandal. But it's all money, and it's all money being thrown into a black hole. I think there are multiple ghost contractor scandals doing different things, and ultimately there's a governing board that's in place that's turning a blind eye to it and making a crap ton of money. And the SDTC is similar in ghost contracting to GC companies, or GC, the company, the guy that Barrett was discussing things with in the first video clip, this guy, right? They're doing a similar function, but I don't think it's the same scandal. So it's wild and crazy, man. It's wild and crazy. The things that are happening that we pay for that seem like expensive, they are expensive, and they are going to be impactful. They are going to hurt the Canadian taxpayer, right? But we seem to have an endless amount of money, and they can just keep printing it. If we don't have enough to give them right away, they can just print more money. So good. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful